Welcome to Live Free. I'm Angela K. Austin. Together, we'll discuss books, we'll explore the world, and we'll do it with some of my closest friends. And hopefully, we'll make new ones along the way.
Hey everybody, I'm Angela K. Austin, and today I'm here with my friend Afton. Say hi to everybody, Afton.
Hey everybody, I'm Afton.
All right, so guys, this is Afton Locke, and I'm trying to remember. I cannot remember the first time I met Afton, but she and I have spent some time at some retreats and some different events and things together. And I just found her to be such an amazingly warm and just sweet person. So I'm so glad that you're here with me today, Afton. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
All right, so before we get into too much about Afton's books and all of her fabulousness, I want her to tell you guys a little bit about who she is and why she writes. So Afton, tell us who you are.
Some days I'm not sure, but I actually have two lives because I have a day job in the IT world, which is very serious. And I also have this creative side, which kind of they fight with each other. But I can't help writing. I've kind of done it all my life. When I was a kid, I would write little stories about the family dog. And then romance and from reading Good Housekeeping. So I just always come back to writing, even if I take breaks in between.
You know, that sounds like me and like so many other people. I mean, I do know some people who came to writing like later, but I always tell people that, I had my little pink diary, when I was a kid, and I would write my poetry, which now that I have learned a lot more about poetry, I don't know if I would call it poetry, but I scribbled my emotions down in my little pink diary. But I did the same thing. Like I would write, I would do something else, I would act, I would do this, I would play music. But in the end, for me, I always came back and like felt most at home when I was writing. Um, so what do you write? Would you classify it as strictly romance? Or would you give it some other like me, I write across different genres, but I also write women's fiction. So how would you classify?
I think romance always plays a part in all my books in some degree or other. As I've kind of changed, my life stages growing, I think it's kind of the passion is I'm kind of toning that down a little bit and playing with that and seeing, how that goes because I'm moving more into suspense and kind of the mystery world because that's just where, my mind wants to go right now. But I still, I can never let romance go. So I think if I tried to write a book that had no romance in it, it would just be like, forget it, because that's just who I am. So I write interracial. It can be contemporary or historical, and now I've kind of gone into suspense. And I like to just write a bunch of different genres. I don't like to stay in just one because I get bored.
I definitely understand that. I tell people all the time, that's one of the, I think, most satisfying things about crossing genres is because if you stay in contemporary romance for a while, you're like, oh, what do and so you could jump over to something else, and you really never have the opportunity to get just kind of like stale because you can always like change it up. So so tell us a little bit about your romance, and then we can talk a little. Well, actually, before, tell us a little bit about why you chose indie. Did you always want to do indie, or were you interested in some in traditional? And then let's talk a little bit about kind of this segue into suspense, and just kind of like where you are with that.
Yeah, actually, the means of publishing is kind of less important to me than just the story itself and the fact that I'm writing. It's kind of like whatever works for my life or the industry at the moment. And, I'm change is hard for me. And so why am I in the IT world? I don't know. And why am I writing? I don't know. Because both of those fields it's just constant change. You can't get away from it. Readers, one year they're loving vampires, and next year, like, we're sick of vampires. We're not reading any more of this. So, you kind of have to adjust for that. So I started out just wanting to be traditionally published. I kind of had the fantasy in mind, like I'm going to hit it big with writing, and I'm going to, you know, have to quit my day job and just sit by the pool and drink, Mai Tais and just write. And I held on to that dream for a really long time, even when I thought, well, this might take more work than I thought. And then I kind of came to the point, where the publishing industry kind of really got very competitive. And it's like, you know what, I don't think this is going to happen realistically, but, I'm not going to stop writing. And the biggest reason I'm doing indie right now is the flexibility. With my day job, I can't have like deadlines and taking up certain amount of my time, because that just takes so much of my energy, and that's just like more every year the job gets harder. So I really like being able to set my own release date. If I want to go on vacation, I'll just adjust it. And I just have control over everything, like my artwork and how I want to market it. So I really like that.
And I can understand that, because I tell them that all the time, because I work, full time in the corporate environment as well. And so I do a lot of writing. Like I tell people, my sweet spot for writing is like 10:30 at night to like 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And so, if I had like word count deadlines and a lot of like editing deadlines and stuff, it would probably make me feel really stressed out. So it does fit in my life. But, like so many people, I did try traditional publishing. And I had that same dream, Afton. It's like Mai Tais, Cosmos, martinis by a pool somewhere, and it's that thing, so I think that so many of us have that dream, and you can actually have that dream. A lot of people have it as indie authors, so it just really depends on reshaping it, not allowing yourself to kind of like lose sight of just what you said. It's about, the important, like what's important to you, getting that story out there, or, so I think that's really important for a lot of indie authors. So if you guys are out there listening to us, don't give up. There's a lot of ways to actualize that dream of yours. Yeah.
And I think, I'm really looking forward to retirement. It used to be like, oh, that's going to be decades away, but, now it's like a little closer. And I think I can have a lot more flexibility. I can get an agent, I can go traditional publishing, because it's hard in one sense because the number of publishers is decreasing. I mean, if I wish I had like come along in the late 70s, I would be like so famous right now. I came too late, but on the other hand, I think if you can get an agent and you get noticed by a big publisher, then I think it could lead to more money. If But then if you're indie, you can also do it if you do a lot of marketing. Unfortunately, I hate marketing, which is not a good thing, but at least if I'm retired, I could spend like more time in it and just have more patience with it.
Yeah. Guys, and that's something that I didn't mention. Afton is one of the tribe who hit the USA Today bestsellers list with me, and that comes from working together doing marketing, because so many people don't want to do it alone, or you don't have the budgets to do it alone. So you get together with other people and, and you help each other. So, and then look at what you can, at what you can accomplish. And that's the thing, like, if there's something that you're not so keen on, there are people out there who do like it. You can work together. So Afton didn't want to do marketing, but she still hit USA Today because she got with other people. We all got together and did it. So tell us a little bit about this transition to suspense. What's making you go more in the suspense vein, and kind of like, what's that first book that made you say, hey, I really want to write more of this?
It's just a couple years ago, my taste in reading just completely changed. And so I thought, I can't really be writing things that I'm not reading anymore, because I'm not going to write it well. I need to write what I'm love to read. And so once I started reading, some of the like New York Times and USA Today bestseller suspenses that are out there, like Lisa Jackson and Mary Burton, I was just like, wow, I was so impressed by all the research that went in there. And, it just would keep me on the edge of my seat. But I thought, I can't do this because there's so much I don't know about, dead bodies and all that. So I thought, well, I can just enjoy reading it. But then it kept bugging me. It's like, I need to at least try to write this. So I took a workshop that was really, really helpful. And at least they kind of pointed me in the direction of how I could learn quickly the stuff that I need to know. And I ended up buying this 1,200-page textbook that the police use to train, and it's on homicide. So I used a whole pad of sticky notes to cover up the really nasty pictures. And um, but I really learned a lot, and it was kind of interesting. And so I actually wrote this, Deadlocked by Dawn. If everybody can see it. And it was a lot of work, but it was very exciting, just to really push myself into something I didn't think I could do. So it's a psychological thriller, and there's a serial killer in there.
I give you guys credit because I mean, like, because I'm that person, like, I love suspense and I love psychological thrillers. Like, I'm not a horror person. So for all you guys out there who watch my channel, follow my podcast, I am not the horror girl. But I love psychological thrillers where it's like, just the whole play of the mind, the intelligence, I don't know, that's like always been very interesting to me. But like you said, that's hard to write because even when I research my historicals, I'm just like, this takes a lot, the research. And then when you're trying to, in that case, when I'm doing historicals, okay, it's history, so I have to set it in that world. But even when I'm writing something in a contemporary environment, you still have world building, and so I can only imagine, like you said, you covered up the gory parts in the police procedural book or whatnot, but it's like when you're trying to set that up, because I think I took a webinar or something about suspense one time, and they talked about kind of how the writer, like they're kind of like writing the story backwards or something. I can't remember how they said it, but like for you to be able to world build and then write it and build it out and leave enough clues without giving it away halfway through the book, that has to be, I mean, one, it has to be fun, because it's like, I mean, I don't know, do you have fun? To me, it sounds fun but hard.
Yeah, well, I am one of those. It's really funny because in all the rest of my life, I am very detail oriented. In fact, I'm going to the Interracial Romance Authors Expo in a few days, and I have my packing list handy. I have been packing for the last month and checking off things on my list. But when I write, I am seat of the pants. I can't write with all the list and pre-plotting and all that. Um, so that keeps it fun for me. And the psychological part was actually easy to write, but I didn't know where it was going to go. I just had these characters and, I knew where they were at, but I just let them play out on the page and they surprised me. The hard part in all my books is polishing, because then I have to take this diamond in the rough and polish the heck out of it. And I usually spend at least as much time, if not more time, on polishing than I do on writing. Writing is a fun part. I just make myself write a chapter and get through it. I don't self-edit or anything or even research too much until the end, and then I do it all.
So you're better than me. Like, I used to be the world's worst self-editor. I could not, like, I would write something, stop, you go away for a couple of days, you come back and you write again. And it was like, I would spend my time rereading what I had written. And so by the time you finish, I've only written like another 300-400 words. And that's because I was so busy cleaning up what I had just written. So I was like, if I write like this forever, I will never get anything published, because it was so bad. So I'm getting better about it so that I can actually push through and finish and write something. And when I say write, like complete it and then go back and do the polishing, because that really is where I feel like you see the story come together. Because it's like when you're just kind of like, just everything in your head is just like spilling out onto the page, that first draft is just nothing but the ideas that are here.
Yeah.
Coming from here into my computer, because I'm a pantser like you, I'm like, I cannot. I don't like right now. I'm studying for a master's in creative writing, right? And they're like, oh, for your dissertation, you have to do this. And I'm like, it's so like, how, what? It's like, I can't, like, I was like, I don't do, I don't, my brain doesn't function like that. And so it's like really trying to make me reshape my thinking in some ways.
Mm,
I completely get
that's
it.
hard.
I get it. I'm like you. I wish I was going to IRA with you.
Oh, you're not going. Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it's like I'm in, because I was like, oh, London has so many restrictions, and I was just like, oh, by the time I hop on a plane, like it was like, oh, it has to be like an emergency. There's like a $5,000 fine. There's this, there's that. I'm like,
Oh
oh,
no.
it's like,
Oh, sorry to hear that.
me too. I'm
I was
gonna
gonna
be
do karaoke with you this year.
look. There will be no karaoke with me, but I want to see all the footage, Afton, all the footage.
Okay.
So hold that book up again. So is that your first suspense one? Is this the first
Yes.
one?
Well,
Hold it up
kind
again.
of.
Let's see.
But
Okay.
the two that came before it are kind of like getting into suspense.
Okay.
This latest one has a lot of the police procedure in it, like how do you investigate a murder, that's kind of all mixed in there. But going back a couple years, this is my one from the 1969. This guy was in a cult, um, sort of. And the heroine is trying to straighten him out. And so he is a little bit unstable, but they're trying to have a romance. And I was very excited writing that. And the sequel, which is his and their daughter got together and they try to end up with this man, just find me. And this man has a crazy brother and who's very racist. And so obviously that does not go well for their interracial relationship. So there's definitely a psychological thriller going on in both of those books. So I think that's kind of my niche because suspense, there's so many different ways you could go. You could just go straight procedural or, capers. I just took a comedy mystery class and I learned a whole bunch of new genres in that. And I'm actually thinking about maybe writing a cozy mystery with humor. So we'll see. I'm just experimenting.
I'm with you because it's like I've learned so many new, like you said, genres since I started this program. And I'm actually, I guess I love women's fiction, I love romance, but I've 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 come to realize that I really love historical fiction.
Mhm.
So, and I like retelling Black history moments from a different perspective. So, be it like my vampire books where I threw vampires into the Civil War, or be it like my book, my witches who are like, um, I did a short story called Descendants, where the witches were um, they were like dancers, but they were like God, it was so much more than that because they were set in like this old historical thing in Harlem, and they were witches, and they were descendants of this other witch group that I had written called the Ducati in another book, but that ties to my vampire book. I've just found that I like writing in that world of like historical fiction, and whether you add a paranormal element to it or a contemporary element to it, I just like writing in that world. And even when I don't try to write in that world, I end up writing in that world. So I feel like that's probably where I'm gonna end up being, where I feel like my voice is the strongest in that mix,
Mhm.
so it's becoming like a comfortable glove for me, like it's very warm. I like it's very like, I don't know, it's just very interesting for me because I feel like I can turn anything into something in that genre.
Right. Yeah, I think every author has kind of like a home place that they really like to write about. And so I think it was historical for me and I'm kind of, branching out and what's going to be interesting is if I try to write comedy, what's going to happen? Because most of my books are serious. You know, there's a romance at stake, there's racial tension, you know, there might be death. And I really enjoy getting into the deep, dark place. But, you know, life has just been so depressing the past year with the pandemic and all of the, you know, everyone upset and just bad stuff. You know, every day you turn on the news, someone's getting killed. And I just kind of got to the point, you know, one of my author friends told me, you know, you need to lighten up. And she kind of like shared this idea with me, like, you know, picture this goat with he's chewed the end of his rope off and he's just hanging out. And I'm like, okay, I think I might be able to do something with this. So we'll see.
Well, let me tell you, I get it, because, and that's a thing that I have just come to realize that I'm trying to, I don't know, I'm trying to do myself. Because I was telling someone, every time I put a joke in a book, I go back and I cut it out. I'm like, yeah, that's not funny. I'm like, why did I think that was funny? And I just end up cutting it out. And I've met some people who, you know, and I've read some authors' works that are so funny. It's like you read it, and while you're reading it, you just like break out laughing, and you're like, why can't I do that? You know? So it's so interesting that you say that. I would love to see what you would do with that.
Yeah, and you might want to have some people read yours, some different, like 3 different people, and if none of them think it's funny, well then maybe not. But if 2 out of 3 think it is funny, then maybe you can. But I gotta say that you are really good at women's fiction.
Oh, thank
Like
you.
I think it was the one you did for the box set, I think. I was just like from the first page, like, whoa, whoa, this is so good, you know. So I wouldn't rule that out either.
Well, you know, I think you're right. I should let other people read it. It's just like, you know, your books be your baby. And when you write it and you think there's something stupid, you're like, I can't let the world see this. And then I just take it and I just delete it, you know, because I'm so unsure about it that I don't even want anybody to see it, you know. But you are right. I should take that chance because I absolutely love it. And there's some stories where I feel like it would be a really great addition. But like you, when you wrote historical fiction, like, or you know, or when you write it, I do play in some of those like deeper areas, you know, and so it's intentionally written that way. And so sometimes I want that little bit of levity so people can see that the people have some sort of humor. But then
Yeah.
I just cut it out. So I've got to get better about that. I really do.
Yeah, I think no matter what genre it is, and a little bit of humor helps. Like even in my really serious books, I might put just like something a little funny here and there. But it's weird about historical, but since this pandemic and everything, I mostly watch historical shows because I just want that total escape, just 100% out of this world.
I understand that. The other day, I watched Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again with Cher. Because I wanted to, like, I was just like, I can't take it. I'm like you said, I was like, every time I turn around, you listen to a podcast, you watch some news clip or something. It was just so much. And I was like, you know what? Let's find Mamma Mia because I love Mamma Mia. I love Cher. And I was like,
I'm gonna have
I
to
was like,
watch that.
you know, the thing is, it's like Cher in a gray wig in and
Oh.
of itself is sheer comedy. You know, I'm like, I have more wrinkles on my face than Cher does, but it was just like, it's like it's such a light, airy music. Even though they're dealing with some heavy stuff, a mother raising a child alone and all of that,
Yeah.
it still just was completely a relief from my reality. So I loved it. Um, so tell us then. So you're gonna move into suspense. So like, what are you working on? Like, do you have any of your other books there, or like anything you can talk to us about with what you have or what you're working on with suspense? Or is that going to be your next release? I mean, is that going to be what's coming out next, suspense or traditional romance?
The next release is going to be kind of a cozy feel comedy suspense. So it's going to be like a bunch of sisters, and one of them has like a nasty husband, and he kind of ends up murdered. I won't go into detail, but that's going to be the next one. And in some of my past my most successful ones that readers liked was the Oyster Harbor series. So that's 4 books right now, and it takes place in the 1930s. And so a lot of people are kind of, because we're now 2021, people are reading a lot about 1910, 1920, even World War II. And I still have readers that want me to continue the series, and I'm just waiting for the inspiration because I don't want to just write it just for the sake of writing it. But there may be a book 5. I just can't make any promises. But I have to say, I was watching, there's an article about Aretha Franklin and National Geographic. And so I started watching her videos, and I'm like, I feel the muse coming to life here. So, she might inspire me. I don't know.
You should watch that series. It's got
Oh, about her. Yeah, I do need to.
yeah, what is it called? I can't think of what it's called.
Can't remember, but yeah, I know what you mean.
But it has the young lady in it who played Harriet Tubman. And she has a beautiful, and I mean beautiful singing voice, but she's playing Aretha Franklin. So if the muse is calling you, you should watch that show. It might make it come on alive. Spark it. So then this one is going to be cozy. It's going to be sisters. Has the title been released yet?
I don't have a title yet, but what I learned in the workshop is you want to make your title kind of have a play on words. So the mother makes cheese, and so that's kind of how she makes her living. It's probably going to be like down in Louisiana or Texas. And so it'll be something like, instead of curds and whey, maybe curds and slay, like slay me, something like that. Kind of a fun title.
Curds and slay. Well, we gotta keep an eye out for it. So then tell us, like, when is that one coming out?
I don't know, the day job kind of rules the life right now. And especially I've been working at home, which has been nice because it gives me 2 extra hours in my day. But I'm going to have to go back to the office, and then I'll have less time. Right now, I'm, kind of embarrassed to say I'm only putting out 1 a year.
Oh.
But,
I'm warm. Look at that. See,
it's all I can do.
Because like I said, working full time, every time I interview an author, it's so funny to me because they'll be like, yeah, Angela, I put out like 4 books, 6 books a year. I'm like, I do 1. Okay. I see my first problem. Because that's, and I'm trying to up my game to get more than 1 book out in a year, but it's so hard. So what can people look for right now? What should we be looking for when it comes to Afton Locke? What books should we go and check out from Afton Locke?
Yeah, definitely this one, Deadlocked by Dawn, is my latest. And so if you go on my website, aftonlocke.com, then it has all my books there. And it also has links for all my social media. I'm pretty much everywhere. So, just say hi. And I will be redoing my website. That's something I'm studying on the side too, is upping my game in web design, because that changes a lot too.
I need to update my website so dramatically. Now, did you tell us some specifics about Deadlocked by Dawn?
No, actually I didn't. So the heroine, Delia, she had a rough time with the pandemic because she owns a resort down in Key Largo. So she's trying to get money back in her pocket. She lost her father to a hate crime, and she also, her husband died in an accident. So she's dealing with grief. And the hero is a detective, and he kind of got shamed in his past job because he didn't handle a deadly shooting correctly. So the last thing he wants to do is deal with another murder, but he's kind of the only one there that can do it. And he ends up being really the person who can get into the killer's mind. And so Delia doesn't trust him at all because her brother got into a police brutality situation that was not handled well. So because of what was going on last year, I didn't want to write about all that, but then it's like, I have to write about this. My muse says, hey, you're good at writing this kind of stuff. This is your mission. You need to do this. So I did. And so she's got to balance her brother and her losses and meanwhile, this murder is killing people on her resort. So like her very life is at stake. So they need to come together as a town and as a couple, and to make everything safe and fair for everybody.
Now that does sound intriguing, and that's like, I like stories that have like a little bit of complexity to them, so that the characters feel really real to me. So like, as I'm reading it, I can understand like why somebody would make those decisions or choices, and so I love that. So that sounds really complex,
Thanks.
especially if she's like lost her husband, lost her, you know what I mean? Sounds like she is a complicated person,
Yeah. And so a lot of the depth of character kind of comes in during my polishing process.
Mhm.
And then, all the workshops help too. And I had taken one with my local chapter of how to delve into like a villain's mind and how the villain and the hero or heroine interact. And that what was really surprising is that some ways that they are very similar. And I thought, well, that's weird. And then I looked at my story and I realized they are. They kind of have the same goals. They're just going about it differently because the killer has dealt with loss as well, but they're dealing with it in a non-society kind of way.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense because I remember some classes like that too. Because you remember, like when I took classes back in the day before I took these classes, what they would talk about, like writing out those goals for your hero and your heroine, your external forces, what they are, your villain, whatever, depending on what genre you're writing, and then like you would like create these circles or whatever to show like where all these things kind of meet, so you can see what the push and pull was. So I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's like they have the same goals and they accomplish it in different, or go after it, pursue it in different ways. Yeah, I like it. That sounds interesting, Afton. All right, what else? Is there anything else we should keep our eye out for? You're going to be at IRAE. What else? You're going to be your Afton Locke on all social media. And what's that? Is that Facebook, IG, Twitter?
Yeah, Pinterest. Also, the sign up link for my newsletter is on my website.
Okay.
I put out a newsletter periodically, and yeah, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and also BookBub is big now. So you can find me there, and you can sign up to get notices for all my new releases that come out.
I'm so bad at BookBub. Follow me on BookBub, people. I never promote BookBub. I'm like, yep. Tell me what's happening on BookBub.
And in the future, maybe audio. Like I said, I don't want to make any promises, but I would like to try at least one audiobook.
Ooh, especially with your suspense, that could be fun. But yeah, so if you did an audio with your suspense, that could really be interesting. Would you get a male or a female narrator?
Probably a male for suspense, but what I was thinking about doing the audio for was Plucking the Pearl, which is the first Oyster Harbor book. Okay. Because that just, that's a reader's favorite book. And I don't know if I would pick a man or a woman, probably a woman, but to do, different voices in that Maryland, like a little bit Southern dialect, would like take people back to the 1930s.
That would be great, because if it's a reader's favorite, that would be a great book to start out with for audio. One of my publishers put some of my books out in audio, but I have not done it myself yet as an indie author. So I'm curious. Yeah. I'll keep my eye out for that, because then I could pick your brain and find out what it was like for you to do that, make that happen. Cool. Awesome. So guys, I always say this to you, but everybody out there in YouTube world and podcast land, if you can hear our voices, see our faces, I hope that you guys will go and check out my girl Afton on all her social, IG, Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, BookBub. Find us both on BookBub. I think I have like 100 followers. Find us. Check us out. Check out her book and show us that latest book again, Afton. Deadlocked. Look at that. All right. Check out Deadlocked. And if you haven't checked out any of her other books, make sure that you guys go and check those out as well. Thank you so much, Afton, for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna miss all you guys in RAE.
I'm gonna miss you too.
I'm already sad.
Thanks, dear.
Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you guys will all come back and join me again soon. Bye.
Bye.